Cole sat in the Deer Valley Airport, located in North Phoenix. It was considered one of the busiest airports in the country for general aviation. Private pilots with their small aircraft, or people like him who owned a business-class jet, used it. It kept those pilots away from the commercial traffic some 23 miles south at Sky Harbor. He waited to pick up Jessi Ames. She was flying in to start work on the movie Deadly Highway. She was 40 minutes late. To be expected, he supposed, as he waited. He didn't know her at all. He had emailed her a couple of times. His only impression was she sounded like a typical 19-year-old, maybe a bit spoiled. He didn't have daughters. He couldn't gauge what was normal, he decided. She sashayed in exactly 1 hour later than the time she promised him should be there. 3 people walked in a close group around her. The 2 guys would be security, he figured. The woman who tried to manage a roller bag in one hand while talking into a cell phone held in the other would be Jessi's manager, Elaine. Jessi was around 5 feet, 5 inches. She wore a neon pink silk blouse, tight blue jeans along with pink 3-inch heels. Her blonde hair was naturally curly and hung to her mid-back. Her makeup looked like it had been spray-painted on. False eyelashes hid her blue eyes. Pink lipstick, as bright and glaring as her blouse and shoes, looked like the pink medicine that soothed stomach and intestinal issues, Pepto-Bismol. He had one word for it, tacky. His mind flashed back to his agent, Diana. If she wore makeup, he couldn't tell. He'd guessed she did. It was doubtful anyone had that flawless skin without some cover-up. Cole wore an old t-shirt with baggy jeans. They never begged for a second look. People saw a gray-haired man with dark sunglasses dressed the way he was and figured it was some guy who had left his recliner to run an errand. It was rare when someone recognized him. That was how he liked it. But then he was 60. He had been in the business enough years to despise the attention from an adoring fan while he was out and about living his life. She was young enough. She probably loved the attention. He could remember those days when he had the patience to pause, sign an autograph, pose for a picture, and listen to praise about his books. Nowadays it was a completely different story. He moved around as inconspicuous as he could. Jessi ignored those she was with as she spotted Cole across the room. She walked over as fast as she could in stiletto heels to where he stood and smiled. "You're here," she breathed as they hugged, as if they were old friends and not meeting face to face for the first time. "Ready to ride?" Cole asked as he eased back from her. Her cologne was as thick as her makeup. He could feel his sinuses run. "Yes," Jessi gushed. "I'm so excited about this movie. I finally get to play a bad chick." He chuckled. "Then let's start researching your role." Jessi had never been on the back of a motorcycle. Cole had his Road King parked outside at her request. She changed shoes to flat-soled boots with fringe. Her heels were dumped into one of the 4 large roller bags the people with her were left to manage. Cole handed her a helmet. "Do I have to wear that?" She pouted. "It will mess up my hair." "It's for security, Jessi," Cole replied. "You're famous. You need to be safe. You'll be unrecognizable with a helmet on." "Oh, all right." She giggled and pulled it on. Cole buckled it for her, then led her outside. He helped her onto the motorcycle. He gave her a few instructions about riding, then started it up. They left the airport. Cole turned on North 19th Avenue. A few miles later, it changed to North Valley Parkway. From there, he took several streets until he pulled up to a big 2-story house. Jessi eyed the house with a critical eye. It was plain. An accomplished writer like him should live in a sprawling house on top of one of the hills around the area, with a big swimming pool in his backyard and staff to wait on him hand and foot. "I thought you lived in something fancy," she stated in a puzzled voice, as a frown showed her disappointment. "I'm just renting this for the duration of the movie," Cole explained as her face cleared. "My home is on a private island out by Hawaii, but it's cheaper to rent this than to fly my private jet back and forth." "Oh," she giggled, "of course. That makes sense." Cole helped her off the bike. He took her helmet and put it on a shelf in the garage. He gave her a fast tour of the kitchen, dining, and family rooms. "Your room is upstairs, the last door on the right. The other 3 rooms up there are for your staff." He pointed to the staircase as the front doorbell rang. Jessi headed up the stairs. Cole invited her staff in. They didn't bother introducing themselves, nor did he care what their names were. He grabbed a bottle of water from the kitchen. As Jess talked with her staff, he slipped outside to the back patio. As quietly as he could, he closed the door, shutting out her shrill voice as a disagreement ensued between Jess and Elaine. Cole pushed a speed dial number. He put the phone to his ear. The person he called answered on the second ring. "I have her." He spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "What are your instructions?" He listened to the voice at the other end of the call. He made mental notes only, something he had learned to do when inspiration hit for a book, and he couldn't stop to write it down. The call was over almost as soon as it started. Cole sat down on a lounger that faced the back of the house. He slid his hands behind his head, kicked his feet up, and grinned. He was back with Desert Rattlers. This was a small price to pay, he thought, as he stared at the shimmering water of the pool. He had no desire to get in. The meeting with Slade and Diego 2 days ago at the New River bar hadn't gone well, as they pointed out just how badly he had screwed up. He was ordered to keep an eye on Jessi as well as those around her. Slade would expect a report at the end of each day. Once the movie was a wrap, the film cast and the crew gone, Cole would be allowed to go back to his island. He had agreed to Slade's orders. It would have been fine if the conversation stopped there, but it didn't. Diego had the last word. If anything went wrong, he had warned Cole with a look that showed his distaste for the author. Cole would pay with his life.